What does it mean to be the daughter of Fidel Castro?
Well, it's a way to carry. I'm doing my best. I feel more a Cuban, a mother, an exilee, because when I started to think differently, I became the enemy like everyone else in Cuba. So I stopped being a daughter a long time ago.
Is there a moment or conversation that you had with Fidel Castro, your father, that has stayed with you?
I mean, it wasn't a normal relationship, of course. It was very sporadic. One time, people were arrested because they were trying to sell goods in a square, very famous in Cuba. And I asked him, why are you arresting people that, are not doing anything? And the answer was that the state has to have the monopoly of the commerce, always.
You were surrounded by communist propaganda and powerful people. Growing up, did the revolution ever appeal to you?
I mean, there is an epic in the revolution, but I always felt uncomfortable, For my generation, the arrival of the revolution was a radical change, like from day to night. I never felt that it was a normal life. Food started to disappear immediately. 2 years after the triumph of the revolution, everything again was disrupted.
You started to speak up against the regime. What kind of pressure did you come under to stay loyal to your father or be silent whilst you were in Cuba?
In Cuba, everything is illegal. So speaking against the government or speaking your opinion, you can go to jail. And you get a lot of pressure. Also in '89, there were some executions in Cuba of some people that were considered heroes to that moment. So I started to be afraid. Yes, so I was afraid from both sides. I thought something could happen to me, either because of the communists or because of people that hate him.
And were you allowed to leave?
No, I had to escape.
How did you escape?
I had to escape with a falsified passport. All the ingredients for an escape, I had to, become some kind of a caricature of a Spanish tourist and left the country speaking like a Spaniard, which I practice, and that's the way I escape.
The situation between the United States and Cuba has been rapidly deteriorating. Do you support the Trump administration's pressure campaign?
I do. 13 presidents didn't know how to deal with Cuba. And the difference here is that we have Marco Rubio, which is the Secretary of State, Cuban, and he knows all the hardship. We finally have an ally in power.
How do you feel about your uncle and former president, Raul Castro, being indicted?
It's a little bit absurd to have a capture order against a 94-year-old man that lives in another country. I think it's a point of pressure, that's all. In the scheme of things, they need those type of justifications to do whatever is needed.
Do you think he may face a similar fate as the Venezuelan leader, Nicolas Maduro?
I'm unable to guess. The surprise element is gone in here. What I will want is for him to, give up and admit that this is a defeat.
And do you expect a US military intervention in Cuba?
It doesn't seem that they are giving up a millimeter of their attitude, their rhetoric, and their epic.
Do you want a military intervention?
Who wants that for his own country? Nobody. But I can tell you something. A dictatorship to get established needs help. And to fall down needs a little push too. I don't think that Cubans are going to get to freedom by banging on casseroles. They need help.
Do you think the United States is underestimating the Cuban government?
They've been prepared for so many, many years. Even if their weaponry is old, I'm sure they have something. And I'm afraid it can go against the population because that was the plan.
So what happens then if the United States goes to war with Cuba?
Wars are surgical these days. Look at what happened in Venezuela. So people really don't have any reason to be afraid of. There's not going to be a bombardment of Havana. No way.
But then if the Cuban government, as you've suggested could happen, put civilians up front, innocent people would die.
That is going to be, again, the Cuban government fault. I don't understand why they are in this position, why they don't want to give up a little bit of over the demands. Why? I mean, for me, it's a mystery, you know. You recognize when you are defeated, the country is ruined, it's totally ruined, it's falling apart.
And what do you think is the best long-term solution for Cuba?
Like for every other country, freedom of election, the implementation of institutions again that were destructed. So what makes a civilian society a firm one and a democracy.
And would you want Cuba to remain independent?
At this point, any solution that is going to bring back a way of life for Cubans, a quality of life, is good for me.
Would you be supportive of Cuba becoming a United States territory?
You know, at this point, I don't see why not, but I'm not an annexionist for sure.
Why do you say that?
Because it needs all the help that it can. You know, it needs to be rebuilt from A to Z.
But there are still a lot of Cubans that would want Cuba to remain independent and don't want to see US involvement.
Of course, of course. I mean, but without US involvement at this point, they are not going to go anywhere. I mean, you're going to want help from the Russians and the Chinese, which is what is been happening until now, but why not the Americans too? Most part of the Cuban Americans that live here want to go back and help and invest, and they have done so well. I mean, the only country in which a Cuban doesn't do well is Cuba.
And you've previously said that you've had your hopes dashed many times. Do you still have hope for Cuba?
I mean, we have a say that there is no illness that is going to last for 100 years. So yes.